Welcome to We Get Real AF, everyone, and welcome to Vanessa and Sue Talk Tech. I'm Vanessa Alava.
And I am Sue Robinson. Thank you to everybody joining us on Twitch and on YouTube. We're on all social platforms. You can find us with the handle at We Get Real AF. We would love for you to also follow us on your wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We're on all the major podcast directories as well.
Yes, yes. This week or today, I don't know. I think, do we do this weekly now, Sue? We do this
Yeah,
weekly now. There's so many things that
bi-weekly.
we have going
I
on.
know.
We have a few exciting things to talk about, interesting things in the world of tech and science. And these are articles that we find that we just think that, hey, why not talk about them because they're relevant. And Sue, I'll start us off. Instagram is now has an app or launching a feature called limits. And basically what it does is it allows certain accounts, well, I suppose it helps more of the influencers and celebrities because they're the ones posting most often, but it allows accounts to hide comments that are offensive, that are sexist, racist, homophobic, abusive, all the things. And these come from people that don't necessarily uh, know the person directly. So they may follow these people, but they're not followed back. Anyway, I thought it was interesting and a step in the right direction as far as trying to keep negativity off of social media. And, you know, I think especially Facebook owning Instagram and all the negativity that comes with Facebook sometimes with privacy. I think this is something that is good, and we talk about tech for good. Another thing that they're doing is rolling out a feature called hidden words, and it's an opt-in feature. So basically, if there are certain words in your direct messages that come up, it's automatically going to go into a hidden folder so you never see them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess this all speaks to the problem that especially celebrities and bigger influencers probably have with trolls, right? So the trolls are the people who just are on there to knock other people down and to say
Mm-hmm.
negative things. And I totally get Instagram, the Facebook entity itself, wanting to keep its ecosystem positive and upbeat, and remove hate speech and racism and sexism and all those things. Of course, the question also has to be raised is at what point does it become censorship? At what point are you putting too much control into whatever the algorithm is that is used to flag things? But it's just one of those slippery slope topics. So interesting to see where it will go. Has it received any kind of criticism from people talking about censorship, or is it?
This is super, super new. So, as far as
Mhm.
any criticism or comments, I haven't seen anything just because I feel like I even found this article earlier this morning and I thought it was super interesting to
Hmm.
talk about. Um, so, no, to answer your question. However, I do feel, you know, I want to give credit where credit's due because this is something that instead of it going on the slippery route, which I know, again, we talk about tech doing that. Well, not even tech doing that. We talk about users of tech doing that. Um, I think that especially with children going onto these platforms, and if this can help even with bullying, where certain keywords, the messages or the
Hmm.
comments don't even show up, and it helps uplift children and make them better digital citizens. Like I'm all about it. I really and I get that there might be, again, to your point, censorship and maybe even privacy issues of like, oh, they're reading through the things that you're receiving, but they're probably doing that anyway. So
Yeah.
all of those things mixed in, I'm like, this can't, I mean, I hope that this doesn't go awry. Like I like this and I like the positive vibe of
Hmm.
this. And again, and I think we're both moms. So my head
Yeah.
went to like, you know what, if that helps stop bullying too, it got to be a win.
Right. Well, and it would be great if they introduce it on the platform that you brought up last week, which will be their
Mhm.
Instagram Junior version, right? For even younger kids. But I mean,
Yep.
it is true that trolls are cowardly, hateful voices on the internet. And I know, like on the Clubhouse platform, which is an audio only platform, the way they control things like that, at least last time I was on it, which has been a few months and this may have changed, is you report it. And it was like a no tolerance policy. If anybody in the community reported somebody else as being a troll, then they were out.
Mhm.
Um, so Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think that there's so much ugliness out there that it has to be, something has to be done to try to mitigate it. And so let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. What about
All
you? What do
right.
you have?
Yeah. So I wanted to follow up on something that I talked about in one of our recent recordings, which was this product that's in testing. It's a medical product. It's called a Centrode brain implant. It's produced by the company Synchron. It's a brain computer interface. And when we spoke about it last time, we were kind of trying to figure out, does this allow people to move a artificial limb? It's designed for people who are paralyzed. So through their thoughts, they can actually move objects or make things happen. And it's just a really cool technology. So the way it works, and I want to clarify, is it's a neuroprosthesis designed to convert thoughts associated with attempted movements into wireless Bluetooth commands, enabling communication with a carer or a loved one and improving people's daily functionality. And so it doesn't sound like it's something that's going to, at this point, move a prosthetic limb, but it is allowing people who are severely paralyzed to do things like online shop or text, or communicate in ways that they weren't able to communicate before. And so I just think that that's really positive, speaking of tech for good. And I'm sure at some point people will be able to move artificial limbs through these kinds of electronic devices. And it's actually injected into your jugular vein, which sounds kind of ooky, but the alternative is to drill a hole in somebody's skull and do a brain implant that way. And that can cause scar tissue and things like that. So what's really cool about this device is it just goes through the vascular system, and then it kind of fills up a space, and it allows your thoughts to emit electrical impulses that are transmitted to a computer. So yay for tech for good.
Definitely. It reminds me of with virtual reality. I remember at one of these electronic shows, the ability to put a headset on and with your brain waves control a robot, that was
Mhm.
like, 5 to 10 feet away from you. But this is actually like happening, like they're testing it and they're putting it into a human body, which again fascinates me, also is kind of scary. We know where those things can lead. But I think, again, to your point, Sue, if you're giving someone the ability to do something that they're not able to do, because of whether they're born that way or whether there's something in life that has caused them to be that way, I think that it's a win.
And the fact that it's minimally invasive
Mm-hmm.
surgery as well is really awesome. So I just
Yeah,
wanted to make that clarification. And again, exciting developments in med tech.
absolutely. Um, Something that, again, super super new, Zoom came out with a focus mode in their settings that's going to allow teachers to prevent students from seeing each other, which sounds bad at first, but as we know, COVID has been really, really trying in education. Teachers had it really, really rough last year, and God bless them. And I mean, I'm like a huge, huge advocate for all of our educators out there. Um, and this allows them to actually focus on their curriculum and toggle back and forth, giving the students an ability to see each other when they want that engagement and open conversation, but when there is subject matter to cover or what they want to share their screen, instead of the kids playing with each other and making faces, they can now go into focus mode and allow the students to focus on what they're wanting to teach.
Right, exactly. And it's the teacher, I think, who is able to control those modes. So that I saw
Exactly.
that article too, and they said it's based off sort of similar technology with webinar presentations,
Mm-hmm.
where it's either the full screen with the teacher or the gallery view with all the kids. And since you're right, I think virtual education is going to be with us for a while in some form or
Exactly.
fashion, um, making it so that students and teachers can make the most use of that time is great. So
Exactly.
it's so, I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought 2 years ago that we'd be having these conversations?
I know.
I mean, it's just really changed everything so much. But we're rolling with it.
I
So,
know. And thank goodness we have the technology that
mhm.
enables us to do that. And again, with the Delta variant out there and a lot of students going back to school, have already gone back to school or are about to, go into school this fall. Um, we're seeing some clusters form, and as much as they would like to be in person, and we know that that's like the best thing for our kiddos, their health comes first. So if there happens to be a cluster and they have to go into a hybrid mode, hopefully this will help enable a smoother path to virtual
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like you can put little Johnny in the corner. He's
Nope.
disrupting the class and you're on Zoom. So, all righty. Well, speaking of kids and technology, this is a pretty interesting article that I found about the new software that Apple will be debuting soon. I believe it's going to be this fall, that is going to allow Apple to access all your photos uploaded to the cloud, and it'll have the capability of scanning photos actually on your device, although they're not saying that's how it will be used initially. And the purpose behind that is to identify any images that have the hashtags, not hashtags, sorry, that have that codes identified as being child sexual abuse material. So the idea behind this is that any company that knows of sexual images of minors that are being transmitted electronically has to report that, or I think they face like a $300,000 fine. The issue becomes the access that Apple will have, not only to your content on the cloud, but also on your device. And so it's pretty controversial because the question is raised then, if they can flag that type of, we all agree, horrible content that needs to be flagged, what else can they flag? And in countries like China, where any images or content that you may have in your phone that is political dissident, considered dissident material, could also be identified and traced to you. And could that lead to human rights abuses against political activists? And so, just another one of those issues where it sounds like such a great idea until you start unpacking it. And then you start learning that 97% of all child pornographic content that is reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is coming from outside of the US. So even if those folks are identified as trafficking in this material, what's the US government going to do about it? Because they're not in this
Mm.
country. But meanwhile, these big tech companies, Apple, have this sort of unprecedented access to content on your phone. So I'll pause there and let you share your thoughts about this, Vanessa.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think at, first glance, it's like, oh, yes, doing a great thing. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Thorn, which is like a
Mm-hmm.
company that dedicates like that their whole mission is like, obliterating like, child pornography and sexual abuse and trafficking, all those things. Um, However, with this piece of it, there are so many of those rabbit holes, right? That we talk
Mm-hmm.
about that it can go down. And one of them that we spoke about recently, maybe even yesterday, was the fact that okay, now Apple has access to go. Well, they have the cloud, right? Could they have gone into our files before? Yes, but now that they're putting it out there, they're officially going to have that approval, I guess, to go into your files and kind of scan these images with all the technology now that you have facial recognition and all of that. Like, what does that do to identity theft and using your identity, somebody else using your identity to steal money or steal whatever else, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that piece of it's a little scary. However, again, I go back and I'm like, has that always been a thing? Like we have on
Mm.
our Apple iPhone where, that facial recognition opens your iPhone, like it unlocks it for you. So
Right.
is it kind of something that's already been done all along? But to your point too, that there are just other nefarious uses, and it's sad to think that that's where our head goes, but it's because like there's precedent out there, right? Like these
Mm-hmm.
things tend to happen that way. So if we could only say, yes, let's just use it for this piece of good, right? But
Right.
how do you do that?
Well, exactly. And Apple CEO Tim Cook addressed this, and he said, or Apple released a statement that said, "Let us be clear: this technology is limited to detecting CSAM, child sexual abuse materials, stored in iCloud, and we will not accede to any government request to expand it. However, cryptographers are worried again, particularly about what could happen in a country like China. And it's interesting to me because Apple is the only provider that offers encrypted messaging services in China currently. Google pulled out because they don't want to deal with any restrictions by the Chinese government.
Mm-hmm.
So now Apple has this huge market there and a very, very, we know, controlled communist government. So how how does Apple navigate if they want to continue to sell devices in that country, if they want to continue to cooperate with the Chinese government? And then we know the Chinese government doesn't like dissidents, and we know the Chinese government doesn't like alternate opinions expressed within its borders. And we know there are terrible human rights abuses going on in China. So how does Apple ensure that every single one of its devices that it's selling in this massive market that has this technology is not being accessed by the Chinese Communist government for, as we say, nefarious purposes or human rights
Right.
violations? And that's why cryptographers are criticizing this, because they say it's really not going to stop the kinds of content that it's designed to stop, but it could create real vulnerabilities for people who are trying to bring change in countries that are very authoritarian and very controlling. So
Mm-hmm.
interesting topic for all of us to be thinking about. And I wanted to bring that up today.
Yeah, we'll have to continue following that to see how that
Mm-hmm.
develops. That's really interesting. On a much, much, much lighter note,
Yay. We need that.
I have a fun thing and I found this and I thought I have got to talk about this. Okay. The entertainer in me. There is a website out there called Nessflix, and that's nest like a bird's nest, Flix, Flix. And it's a Netflix for fake movies and shows from real movies and shows.
This is
So
so meta. This is like
indulge me, okay? So basically think of Wikipedia, right? Like people can go into Wikipedia and update it and it's like on anything, right? But this is very niche. And if you have ever seen a TV show in which a character was reading a book made specifically for that character in that show, in that show or movie, or watching a movie in a movie that was created specifically for that movie. And I will give an example. Home Alone, right? Home Alone, most people know Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin, So the one movie the kid watches, like in like where, the gangster guy comes out with the gun and all that, that is not a real movie. That was a movie made for the film. So basically, if you're ever curious as to any of these little like quirky pieces of content within like a larger body, you can look it up on this library of sorts. And all it is like a description of what that movie was or what that show was or what that book was, with like pictures of it and all of the actors within that movie with the characters' names, not the actors' names. So it's so funny. But basically, if you want to contribute to Nessflix, which there is a temporary pause because the person that's in charge of this website is overwhelmed with so many submissions and she's trying to catch up. This is what it says. Nessflix is a wiki dressed up as a streaming platform that catalogs fictional films and TV shows inside real movies and TV shows. So you can these are the criteria for what gets added. It must be a fictional, so not characters watching a real film and not a recreation of a real film. Must show actual footage, not just mentioned in dialogue or in scene in a poster. Not a news or morning show for now, because that might change. As we know, there are fictitious morning shows and news shows in these TV, in sitcoms and in movies. So anyway, just super quirky, super fun. And I had to talk about it because we're in that field.
It's like the Russian nesting doll of content, right? It's like
exactly.
Things inside of other things, inside of other things. But it's clever. And
It
fun.
is.
Yeah,
It is.
love it.
If you ever wanted to know every character that was in what is it on The Office, it was Threat Level Midnight, the movie that Michael made. You can go in, look it up. There's a brief synopsis with all of the character names, so and images of Threat Level in Midnight. So anyway, that's just really quirky and fun. So wanted to just like end on a fun note because we talk about some deep stuff on here and this is fun.
Yes, I appreciate you bringing the light. I feel like I always bring the dark side of the web, and you're like, but there's the world of entertainment. We can all escape and be happy and do fun things, which I love too. So, one thing I want to just tease, and then I want to do more research and talk about later on another episode, because this is very new and pretty amazing, is this idea of open source AI that you and I were talking about earlier, and how
Mm-hmm.
Google is investing in open source AI. And, the idea behind it is that instead of learning to code, instead of learning how to write code, the companies that are building and the software developers who are contributing to open source artificial intelligence are using natural language processing, so that instead of me writing a code that tells my computer to build a website, for example, I could just say to my computer, put a header image in the center, and then add another image on the side, and then 17 lines and blah blah, and it will write code that tells itself to then go ahead and build this website or other things like that. So I don't know much about it. It's just been coming out in the news this week, but I think it's pretty intriguing, because as somebody who doesn't really code, and I know coding is such a big deal, and we talk about that a lot now with so many of our guests, the importance of children learning to code, the importance of encouraging girls to get into STEM and learning to code. And I think that continues to be true, but it does make me wonder if down the road that will become an obsolete talent or skill set as well, because we'll be able to, instead of learning to talk computer, our computers will learn to understand us. And Codex, which is the software right now that is being discussed on the internet in this open AI space, actually speaks 7 different coding languages. I think 7. The main one is Python. So our computers are getting smarter, I guess, is the
Yes,
note I'll close on.
that's amazing. And that technology I wish was in existence like 2 months ago when we were working on our
Oh, yeah.
website. But yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And I definitely want to follow that, because it's just like, it blows my mind what we're capable of. And I remember watching one of the, how Apple came to be, one of those movies, because there's been several iterations of it. But it was one where Ashton Kutcher was playing Steve Jobs. Um, and they're in their garage, and he's basically saying, yeah, computers, like, imagine you not seeing the code and you actually seeing what like the code means instead. And it's kind of like what
Mhm.
this is. So this is the next evolution of that. I feel it's like you're literally speaking to your computer, so it shows you what you want to see. So it's pretty amazing.
Well, it is. And it's so intuitive, because it's teaching the computer to speak our language instead of trying to
Hmm.
teach humans to speak the computer's language.
Exactly.
And it's a little bit controversial, I guess, because it is open source and there are so many developers who are contributing to it. And then if a company sort of runs with it and profits from it, then how's that? There's some discussion there. But I want to end on a positive note, because I think it's cool. So
Go contribute something to Nessflix.
yes. Okay. Awesome.
Yay. This was a good one. Yeah,
Absolutely.
tune in to us every week. We have lots of content. We have great episodes with women in technology doing amazing things. We have our profesh sesh with our talent expert Elisa Walters every Thursday, and we're on Twitch. We are on YouTube. We're doing our tech talks, which I guess this episode qualifies as that. So yeah, we're doing all the things. So we'd love for you to just tune into us.
Tune in and join the conversation, especially if you're on Twitch. You can also email us at Sue and Vanessa, Sue at micdropcreative.com, Vanessa at micdropcreative.com. Let us know what you'd like to hear about. But for
Yeah.
now, we're signing off.